The condescension. The void of space stretched before Captain Elara Jenkins as she guided the UES Horizon through the star-speckled darkness. The ship represented humanity's finest achievement, their first true deep space exploration vessel capable of manipulating gravity waves for faster-than-light travel. After decades of theoretical work and 15 years of practical application, humans had finally broken free of their solar system and ventured into the cosmic ocean. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy signatures 3 light minutes ahead," Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen reported, his eyes fixed on the holographic display hovering above his station. Elara nodded, her expression remaining composed despite the excitement she felt building within her chest. "Classification. Nothing in our database matches it," Chen replied. "But the pattern is too regular to be natural. It's artificial, Captain." The bridge fell silent. 6 months into their maiden voyage, and the Horizon had potentially found what humanity had been searching for since they first gazed up at the stars. Proof they weren't alone. "Yellow alert," Elara ordered, "and hail them on all frequencies and protocols." Dr. Amira Hassan, the ship's chief xenolinguist, immediately began the complex sequence of mathematical and visual communication attempts that Earth's best minds had devised for first contact scenarios. The crew held their breath as minutes stretched into an hour with no response. Then suddenly, the ship's systems flickered as an external signal overrode their communications. "They're responding," Dr. Hassan announced, voice tight with wonder. "And they've already deciphered our language matrix." Before Elara could process that information, the main view screen lit up with an image that made several crew members gasp. The being that appeared was vaguely humanoid, but with skin that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. Its eyes, if they could be called that, were multifaceted crystalline structures that refracted light in impossible ways. "Humans of Earth vessel," the alien spoke in perfect English, its voice resonating with harmonics that made the air vibrate strangely. "I am Overseer Zilnax of the Zinthuri Collective. Your presence has been noted." Elara stepped forward. "Overseer Zilnax, I am Captain Elara Jenkins of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We come in peace and friendship, seeking knowledge and mutual exchange between our civilizations." A sound emerged from the alien that might have been laughter, though it sent uncomfortable vibrations through the deck plating. "Exchange? Between the Zinthuri and humans? What could you possibly offer us?" For the next 3 hours, the conversation continued in this vein. Every human achievement Elara mentioned was dismissed with casual contempt. Their FTL drive was described as quaint primitive technology. Their advances in medicine were basic cellular manipulation any child could master. Their art and philosophy were predictably limited by 3-dimensional thinking. "You must understand, Captain Jenkins," Zilnax explained with the air of an adult speaking to a particularly slow child. "The Zinthuri mastered 11-dimensional engineering while your ancestors were still discovering fire. Your civilization's entire existence is but a momentary curiosity to us." Throughout the exchange, Elara maintained her diplomatic poise, but she noticed something in the Zinthuri's dismissals, a pattern of arrogance that revealed more than Zilnax intended. Behind her calm expression, her mind raced with possibilities. As a gesture of magnanimity, Zilnax eventually declared, "We will permit your species limited access to our outpost in the system you designate HD 219,134. Perhaps in a few millennia, your kind might evolve enough to be of some minor interest to us." "The generosity of the Zinthuri Collective is appreciated," Elara replied, bowing slightly. "We look forward to this cultural exchange, however limited it may be." As the communication ended and the Zinthuri vessel shimmered before disappearing in a display of technology that defied human understanding, a heavy silence fell over the Horizon's bridge. Well, Lieutenant Sarai Okafor broke the silence from her tactical station. That was humiliating. "Was it?" Elara asked, a small smile forming on her lips. She turned to her science officer. "Dr. Kapoor, What were you able to learn while our new friends were busy telling us how insignificant we are? Dr. Vivek Kapoor's eyes gleamed with excitement as he pulled up the sensor data he'd been discreetly gathering throughout the exchange. Everything, Captain. Their shields, their propulsion system, their dimensional manipulation technology. They were so confident in their superiority that they didn't bother to mask any of it. And, Ilara prompted, and it's fascinating, Kapoor continued. They're not actually manipulating 11 dimensions as they claimed. They're using a form of 9-dimensional folding that's incredibly advanced, yes, but it has distinct limitations. There are mathematical inconsistencies in their approach, blind spots they don't even seem aware of. Ilara nodded, her suspicions confirmed. They've hit a technological plateau. They'd been so far ahead for so long that they've stopped looking for alternative approaches. Precisely, Kapoor agreed. Their dimensional mathematics are trapped in what we might call a local maximum. They've perfected one approach but haven't explored others. Dr. Hassan, Ilara turned to her xenolinguist. What did your analysis of their communication patterns reveal? Hassan tapped her console, bringing up linguistic algorithms, rigid thought structures. They use incredibly complex language, but with surprisingly limited conceptual flexibility. There's virtually no evidence of metaphorical thinking or intuitive leaps, just elaborate variations on established paradigms. Lieutenant Chen set a course for Earth, maximum speed, Ilara ordered, and encrypt all data gathered from this encounter under my personal authorization code. Captain, Commander Zhang, her first officer, questioned. Ilara's eyes held a determined gleam. The Zinthari have given us a gift, Commander. They've shown us exactly what they believe we can't do, and they've revealed the limitations of their own thinking in the process. As the horizon turned back toward home, Ilara gazed at the stars on her view screen. The Zinthari had dismissed humanity as a primitive species barely worth acknowledging, but they had overlooked something fundamental about humans. When told something was impossible, they became obsessed with proving otherwise. We have 6 months before the Zinthari expect us at their outpost, she said quietly. 6 months to show them what primitive humans are truly capable of. In a classified facility buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Kaito Nakamura stood before a holographic representation of mathematical equations that seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt the eyes of uninitiated observers. His controversial theoretical framework, what he called orthogonal dimensional physics, had been dismissed by most of the scientific community as elegant but impossible, until the horizon returned with the Zinthari data. The dimensional blind spots I predicted, he murmured, comparing his equations to the Zinthari approach. They're exactly where I theorized they would be. Behind him, Captain Jenkins watched with arms crossed. Can we exploit them? Kaito nodded slowly, his mind already racing ahead to applications. The Zinthari are using brute force methods to manipulate 9 dimensions. It's like they're building a massive dam to redirect a river. What I'm proposing is more like finding a small stream that bypasses the river entirely. How quickly can you develop a practical application? Asked Admiral Helena Reyes, the head of Earth Defense Force's Advanced Technology Division. With this confirmation of my theories and the sensor data from the horizon, Kaito considered 6 months for a small-scale prototype, perhaps a year for a ship-sized implementation. Admiral Reyes shook her head. You have 3 months, Doctor. The Zinthari are expecting Captain Jenkins at their outpost in 6. We want to be ready before then. Kaito opened his mouth to protest, then closed it as he glanced back at his equations. The Zinthari data had validated decades of his work that had been dismissed as impossible fantasies. If they could be so blind to these mathematical possibilities, what else might they have missed? 3 months, he agreed. I'll need unlimited resources, the best minds on Earth, and complete autonomy. Done, Admiral Reyes said without hesitation. As the weeks passed, the secret project, codenamed ORTHUGONAL, proceeded at a feverish pace. Engineers and physicists worked around the clock, fueled by a mixture of scientific curiosity and wounded pride. The Xanthari's dismissal of human achievement had struck a deep chord, awakening a collective determination to prove them wrong. Dr. Nakamura's theoretical framework allowed for what he called dimensional orthogonality, the ability to move perpendicular to conventional dimensions, effectively becoming invisible to entities operating in those dimensions. It wasn't 11-dimensional engineering as the Xanthari claimed to master. It was a fundamentally different approach to dimensional physics altogether. 92 days after project initiation, in a secure testing chamber deep within the Antarctic facility, Kaito stood before a small, unassuming cube of dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "The prototype is ready," he announced to the observers behind the shielded glass. "This represents the first human-made object capable of true dimensional orthogonality." "What exactly should we expect to see, Doctor?" Admiral Rice asked. Kaito smiled. "That's precisely the point, Admiral. You won't see anything at all." He activated the device with a simple command. The cube shimmered briefly and then vanished, not with a flash or dramatic effect, but with a subtle wrongness that made observers' eyes slide away from where it had been, as though that portion of space refused to be perceived. "It hasn't teleported or been destroyed," Kaito explained, his voice tight with excitement. "It's still there, but it's now orthogonal to our conventional dimensions. The Xanthari, for all their advanced technology, would be completely unable to detect it." 2 months later, the UES Defiant was ready, a vessel built from the ground up around Dr. Nakamura's orthogonal dimensional drive. From the outside, it appeared smaller than the Horizon, with a sleek, almost predatory design. Its true nature, however, was hidden in layers of reality that human eyes could not perceive without technological assistance. As Captain Jenkins assumed command of humanity's new flagship, she felt the weight of possibility pressing on her shoulders. They weren't just testing new technology. They were about to fundamentally change humanity's position in the galactic order. "All systems ready, Captain," reported Commander Zhang, who had transferred with her from the Horizon. "The orthogonal drive is stabilized and functioning at optimal parameters," added Dr. Nakamura from his specially designed station. Ilara took a deep breath and settled into the command chair. "Set course for the Xanthari outpost. It's time we showed our new friends what humans are truly capable of." The Triumph. The Xanthari outpost orbiting HD 219,134 was a marvel of engineering that defied conventional physics. Its spiraling structures extended through multiple dimensions, portions of it seeming to appear and disappear as they phased between dimensional states. A fleet of Xanthari vessels patrolled its perimeter, each one capable of destroying the Horizon dozens of times over. The UES Defiant dropped out of orthogonal space 5 million kilometers from the outpost, completely undetected by Xanthari sensors. "Dimensional alignment is holding," Dr. Nakamura confirmed, monitoring the complex systems that kept the ship perpendicular to conventional spacetime. "We're effectively invisible to them." Captain Jenkins nodded, studying the tactical display. The Horizon had arrived at the outpost 2 days earlier, right on schedule. As expected, the Xanthari were treating the human vessel and its skeleton crew with the same condescension they'd shown during first contact. "Open a channel to the Horizon," she ordered. Commander Zhang's face appeared on the view screen. He was temporarily commanding the Horizon, while Ilara took charge of the Defiant for this mission. "Right on time, Captain," he said with a slight smile. "The Xanthari have been giving us the grand tour. Did you know they invented music 50,000 years ago? Apparently, human compositions sound like primitive grunting to their superior auditory processing centers." Ilara smiled tightly. "Is Overseer Zilnax available?" "Of course, Captain Jenkins." The Overseer's voice came through before his image replaced Zhang's on the screen. "I trust your journey back to this outpost was manageable for your vessel's limited capabilities." "Actually, Overseer," Ilara replied, keeping her tone cordial, "I'd like to discuss those capabilities, if you don't mind. Would you be willing to join me for a demonstration? I believe there are aspects of human technology that might interest you after all." The Zintheri made that disconcerting sound that passed for laughter. What could you possibly demonstrate that would interest the Zintheri collective? But very well. I find your species' optimism amusing, if nothing else. Excellent. Please focus your sensors on coordinates I'm transmitting now. The coordinates marked empty space, the exact position where the Defiant hovered in dimensional orthogonality. "There is nothing at those coordinates, Captain," Zilnax said with obvious amusement. "Not from your perspective, no," Ilara agreed. She nodded to Dr. Nakamura, who initiated the dimensional realignment sequence. The Defiant shimmered into conventional existence directly between the horizon and the Zintheri outpost. Alarms immediately blared across Zintheri systems as their sensors registered a vessel that, according to all their understanding of physics, could not possibly have been there a moment before. "This is the UES Defiant," Ilara announced, unable to keep a hint of pride from her voice. "The first human vessel equipped with orthogonal dimensional drive technology." For perhaps the first time in its existence, Overseer Zilnax was speechless. "Your civilization has achieved remarkable mastery of 9-dimensional physics," Ilara continued. "But you've overlooked the possibilities of dimensional orthogonality, moving perpendicular to conventional dimensions rather than manipulating them directly." "Impossible," Zilnax finally managed. "Such technology would require a complete reconfiguration of fundamental dimensional constants. No species at your development stage could possibly." "And yet, here we are," Ilara interrupted gently. "Perhaps the Zintheri have been masters of the cosmos for so long that you've stopped looking for new approaches." The Zintheri vessels surrounding the outpost had moved into defensive formations, their weapons systems activating automatically in response to the unexpected threat. "There's no need for that," Ilara said, noting the military response. "We come in peace, just as we said from the beginning. This demonstration isn't meant as a threat, merely a suggestion that our species might have more to offer in an exchange than you initially believed." Over the next several hours, technical teams from both species engaged in careful, measured discussions. The Zintheri experts, once they overcame their initial disbelief, showed a hunger for understanding that belied their previous dismissiveness. The humans, for their part, shared enough to demonstrate their breakthrough, while carefully protecting the core principles of Nakamura's work. "Your approach is unorthodox," the chief Zintheri scientist admitted reluctantly. "It contradicts several fundamental principles we have taken as axiomatic for millennia." "That's precisely the strength of it," Dr. Nakamura explained. "By questioning basic assumptions, we found pathways your civilization overlooked." In the command center of the outpost, Overseer Zilnax and Captain Jenkins watched the technical exchange on monitoring screens. "It seems we may have been premature in our assessment of your species," Zilnax said, the words clearly difficult for the Overseer to form. "A natural mistake," Ilara replied diplomatically. "When you've been advanced for so long, it's easy to assume that all technological progress must follow the same path you took. The Zintheri collective has encountered thousands of species across this galactic quadrant," Zilnax mused. "None have surprised us in a very long time." "Humans specialize in surprises," Ilara said with a small smile. "It's perhaps our most defining characteristic." As the technical exchange continued, word spread rapidly through the Zintheri communication network about the unexpected human breakthrough. The implications were significant, not just for human-Zintheri relations, but for the Zintheri standing among the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. 3 days later, the Defiant and the Horizon prepared to return to Earth. The farewell ceremony was markedly different from the condescending welcome they had received. Zintheri officials spoke of mutual exchange and valuable divergent perspectives, phrases that would have been unthinkable before the Defiant's demonstration. In her quarters aboard the Defiant, Ilara reviewed the agreement that had been negotiated. The Zintheri would establish a permanent embassy on Earth and provide humans with limited access to their technological database, not as a gift to a primitive species, but as the beginning of what they now termed a potentially significant partnership. Commander Zhang entered after requesting permission, his expression thoughtful. The Zinthari ambassadors are settled aboard the Horizon for transport to Earth, he reported. Though they're still struggling to comprehend how we managed to develop orthogonal physics without first mastering their approach to dimensional manipulation. That's precisely what they needed to learn from us, Ilara said, setting down the agreement tablet. The power of approaching problems from unexpected angles. Dr. Nakamura says the Zinthari scientists are already developing theories that extend his work in directions he hadn't considered, Zhang noted. Once they overcame their initial resistance, their analytical capabilities proved extraordinary. As we expected, they aren't arrogant because they're stupid. They're arrogant because they've been right for so long that they forgot they could be wrong. Ilara gazed out the viewport at the swirl of stars. That's the real exchange here. They teach us about the technology they've perfected over millennia, and we teach them how to question their own assumptions. As the Defiant and Horizon departed the Zinthari outpost, word was already spreading through the Galactic communications network about the species that had emerged from obscurity to challenge the technological paradigms of one of the oldest civilizations in the quadrant. Humanity's reputation was being established not as conquerors or even as equals, but as innovators, beings who thought differently and saw possibilities where others saw only established limitations. Set course for Earth, Commander, Ilara ordered as she took her place on the bridge. We have a lot of work ahead of us. As the Defiant slipped sideways into orthogonal space, vanishing from conventional sensors, she allowed herself a moment of pure satisfaction. The Zinthari had expected to humor a primitive species. Instead, they had encountered the most quintessential human quality, the stubborn refusal to accept that something was impossible simply because everyone said it was. It wouldn't be the last time the galaxy underestimated humanity, but it might be the last time they did so quite so confidently. The end.